Nancy Pelosi went on the Sunday shows to talk about President Trump's agenda, and she can't stop saying absurd things.
Democrats retake the House. How does a Democratic House, you as a Democratic Speaker, work with this president? I mean, you've been the resistance. You look a lot like a party of no right now. You're blocking.
I don't think that at all.
Posing when he's in. Well, how do you work with him?
What is he proposing? A bill that had 17% support in the public in his health care bill? Hasn't really proposed anything. We're looking for the infrastructure bill, which we're welcome to. We welcome and want to work with the president on. We welcome some of his ideas, as you said in the campaign, about work and home balance in terms of child care, et cetera, affordable child care. We look forward to working with him. We said we would work on a tax reform for fairness and transparency but what did he put out but a wish list for billionaires? I see everything as an opportunity, and I've never seen so much willingness to help win. And if winning means winning for the American people, that either we win or whoever wins understands the priorities of the American people, and they are not what President Bush, excuse me. I'm so sorry, President Bush. I never thought I'd pray for the day that you were president again, but...
You're praying for the day that President Bush is president again?
Well, we worked, and so you asked the question, how would I work with a Republican president? The way we worked with President Bush. We got a great deal accomplished. We opposed him on the war in Iraq vociferously. We opposed him on his privatization of Social Security, but we worked with him on many other issues.
You have to stop making that point. Every Democrat who makes that point, it just instantly exposes themselves as a colossal idiot. Because this gets to the heart of a point that I made and others made during the campaign, which is Donald Trump has made it so that the spectrum has shifted so far to the right that now, in the eyes of corporate Democrats and loyalist partisan Democrats, anything except Trump is viewed as moderate and acceptable. So you know how people throw around the word normalize a lot? Like, oh, you're normalizing X, Y, or Z. This is a case of genuinely normalizing complete and utter extremists in the Republican Party. People like Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, President Bush, Dick Cheney. And again, it's not me saying it. She just said, I never thought I'd pray for the day we had President Bush back. Why? 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 We had the war in Iraq, as you mentioned right there. We had the war in Afghanistan. We had blown a giant hole in the deficit. It's funny that the Republicans always talk about how they're deficit hawks because he left a $1.4 trillion deficit to President Obama. You're talking about a guy who oversaw a financial collapse, did further deregulation, cut taxes for the rich. I mean, Guantanamo Bay, torture, getting rid of due process, NSA spying. What does that even mean? But that's the point. The point is, she's in her little DC bubble, and, well, I mean, George W. Bush is part of the club. You know, he's an insider. He went on Ellen. There's pictures of him and Michelle Obama with their arms around each other. I mean, guys, he's one of us. Sure, he did some bad things, made some mistakes. Sure. But he means well. He's a good guy. He's a woke war criminal. Why not give him the love and adoration he deserves? But that's the problem, man. Look at how far right the spectrum has shifted in Washington. Now George W. Bush is cool. Paul Ryan's a moderate. Mitch McConnell's a moderate. And the Democrats, she's bragging about working with George W. Bush. But that's exactly the problem. And who wants to get out and vote for a Democratic Party that's going to brag about working with a fucking war criminal and one of the worst presidents in U.S. history? The guy left office with like a 25% approval rating. It was amazing. But that's where we are. He's part of the club. He's in that DC bubble with them. So, yeah, we have disagreements, but he's a gentleman and he's a good guy. He's only responsible for the deaths of at least 200,000 innocent people in Iraq. But hey, what are you going to do? Bad stuff happens, I guess. Stop. And the funny thing is, this was the first clip I've seen of her in a while where she started out okay. You know, the host is like, well, aren't you just acting like the party you know? She's like, well, number one, no, we're not. But number two, he's proposing shit that nobody fucking wants. Yeah, what, a healthcare bill with 17% approval rating? What, you want us to work with him on that? That's crazy. So I'm listening at first like, oh, okay. Okay, keep hammering him. Go ahead, make the good points. Say we're going to obstruct him on all the things where he should be obstructed, where we're going to look out for the American people. That's a good point. But then she veers it off into a ditch. Talking about President Bush. I never thought I'd pray for the day where President Bush was... And she apologized to him. President Bush, I'm so sorry for mentioning you. You're obviously way more noble and better than Donald Trump. Except Bush would have probably done everything that Trump is doing now with the addition of approving TPP. So you bragging about working with them. And by the way, guys, look, the main problem is, what does Nancy Pelosi stand for? She stands for bragging about working with George W. Bush. That's what she stands for. What did you work with them on? You worked with them on the tax plan, right? The Bush tax cuts. What a disaster they were for the country. Yeah, bipartisanship, yay. No, what the American people want is what the polls reflect that they want. They want Medicare for all. They want free college. They want the minimum wage to be a living wage. They want to end the wars. But you can't help yourself. They're unmoored. These corporate Democrats are unmoored. Their whole philosophy can be boiled down to where we're against Trump and insert platitudes and cliches. That's it. Trump bad. We gotta, uphold our values, and fairness is good, and so is equality, and justice. Yay. You have any policies you want to discuss? Well, yeah, but you know what? We're gonna defend the Affordable Care Act. Oh, and what else? Well, it's, we're for good things. This is why nobody's excited to vote for you, because as you say shit like that, you also in the next breath talk about how President Bush was a reasonable person who we could work with. Or he's a fucking war criminal who should be rotting in a prison somewhere, and he's one of the worst presidents we've ever had, and shame on you for even a split second thinking, let me make this point. By the way, Nancy Pelosi has a primary challenger now. I'm not going to say any more except that Justice Democrats is looking into him. Because with stuff like this, and she also refuses to support Medicare for all. She hasn't signed on to H.R. 676. People have been calling her nonstop. And by the way, everybody knows in the audience, if you haven't done it already, go do it. justicedemocrats.com/single payer. Sign the petition. Call your congressman or congresswoman if you haven't yet to tell them, look, support this or else. Originally, I think 72 congresspeople supported it. And then guess what? Now it's about 104. And that's all because of the grassroots pressure that you put on. Justice Democrats is working in conjunction with brand new Congress and the National Nurses Union, National Nurses United. And your grassroots pressure is working. But Nancy Pelosi hasn't budged. You know what her dodge is? Well, if we had a clean slate, I'd like to... Shut the fuck up. Do you support it or not? Do you support it or are you going to support H.R. 676 or not? Spare me your fucking parade of rationalizations. Are you going to support it or not? She hasn't signed on to it. So perhaps it's time for her... You can't go after Nancy. She's a leader in the Democratic Party. Good point. It's not like there's any evidence in recent history that would prove that you can take down a leader. Say, I don't know, Eric Cantor in the Republican Party, who was ousted by David Bratt, the Tea Party challenger. Don't tell me it ain't possible. They need to shape up or else. They're so smug in their fucking ivory tower looking down at everybody. Yes, we now have declared that George W. Bush is in the club. So we say nice things about him from time to time. You want to do that? Okay. Okay. Be prepared to lose your job. That's all I'm going to say.